This is sort of a perfect branching off from the video I just did, if you didn't see it, on my channel, and it talks about how this social justice ideology it's basically overrun by people who constantly have to tell you how bad things are because they want to sell you stuff, because they don't actually care about what's going on. This is a story with a huge photo of apparently a homeless camp. I don't know, it's a funny, big photo. LA's battle for Venice Beach. Homeless surge puts Hollywood's progressive ideals to the test. You know what? This story actually just proves or provides more insight into the fact that the people in LA don't actually care. They don't. They'll go around parading about how progressive they are, how much they care. They don't. And I'll let you in on a secret, I actually worked for a homeless shelter in Los Angeles. Okay, I'm not going to say too much about it, but I will say that I believe, in my opinion, they are liars and manipulated people in exchange for money, and it's one of the reasons I got out of the nonprofit industry. I used to do fundraising for various causes. One of the issues that I would, it was a lot of issues, right? So I did some fundraising for like the ACLU, on behalf of the ACLU, for Greenpeace, for environmental causes, for homelessness and things of that nature. And I found that almost all of these nonprofits lie. They do. Now what they do is they propagandize. They give propaganda to their staff, so the staff isn't really lying because they believe it's true, but yeah, once you realize that you're telling people things that aren't factually correct in exchange for money, you can't do it for a living. You can't, because it's fraud. And there was one instance where I went out to fundraise, this is in Los Angeles, discovered that the information they gave me to tell people was false, and I called them and said, yeah, I can't tell people this is wrong, it's a lie. And they said, why don't you just do it, and then we'll talk about it later. And I said, you want me to lie to people in exchange for money? And that, no, that's telling me to commit a crime. I refuse. I ended up quitting. What do we see in Los Angeles? It is considered to be the homeless capital of the developed world. More homeless people in Los Angeles than in many other cities. I don't know if that's still true. It was true, 10 years ago or something. But basically, you have more homeless people there than any other city in the United States, basically. It's really big, too. Why is it, then, that those in California, those in Hollywood, who preach about opening up the borders and letting these people in, don't care that they have hundreds of thousands of homeless people living on their streets? Why aren't they opening up their homes to help these people? Why aren't they giving their money to help these people? Don't get me wrong, some do. Many do. A lot of money. They're really great people in Hollywood. You know, just because there's fake people in Hollywood, let's not forget there are good celebrities who do awesome things. There's a subreddit called Keanu Being Awesome. I think Keanu Reeves probably lives in LA, and he's not necessarily the biggest Hollywood star today, but he certainly seems like he's certainly one of the biggest celebrities of our generation, and he seems like a cool dude. There was a really funny post on Reddit, and it said, I finally dug up dirt on Keanu Reeves, and it was a story, and it said, Keanu Reeves is secretly funding children's hospitals. All right, so there are people who do good, who practice what they preach, but you don't really see someone like Keanu going out and preaching about intersectionality and why people are privileged. No, he kind of minds his own business and then does things behind the scenes to be a cool guy. And that's why I think Keanu Reeves is pretty awesome. And The Rock has been pretty similar. I've seen a bunch of posts of him in the same way. Forget it, let's honorable mention, or I should say just to mention that story that was fake about him. But let's read a little bit of this. They say, with swelling transient encampments abutting 7-figure homes, the beachside enclave has emerged as a flashpoint for inequality shaping Los Angeles and a real-world test case for the liberal ideology of the area's showbiz residents. They say, after the first attack, Randy Osborne figured it was just his turn. Tire slashings in his East Venice Beach neighborhood have become commonplace. But when his vintage Land Rover was hit a 6th time in the course of a few months, Osborne, who runs a small virtual reality company and has lived in Venice for 7 years, began to worry he was being singled out. It may have been random, but it sure felt targeted and concentrated, says Osborne, who now protects his tires each night with a jerry-rigged plywood and chain contraption that has so far deterred the assailants. Every time he takes his family out of town, he worries about his house being robbed. It's not a very fun way to live, he says. A lot of residents within Osborne's 15-block area, just east of Lincoln Boulevard, where actor Viggo Mortensen owns a home and director Jon Favreau is opening a production office, have similar stories. And though they can't say for sure, Osborne and others suspect the crime is tied to several homeless encampments that have sprung up nearby in the past 15 months. I want to give an honorable mention to a different issue. He's got a Land Rover in California, and someone keeps slashing his tires. I'm willing to bet it is an anti-fascist or environmental activist, not a homeless person, slashing your tires for no reason. But this is just another fascinating example of the oblivious nature of these people and these stories. Let me just point out, you live in Venice Beach, you got a bunch of hippies living on the beach smoking pot, probably a lot of environmentalists, and you got a Land Rover, okay? It's big, consumes a lot of gas. Wouldn't be surprised if someone goes around slashing the tires of SUVs. You're gonna assume it's a homeless person. This just shows us another example of how these people who claim to be progressive and caring about marginalized communities are actually just bigots themselves. That's your first guess? If you were going to ask me who slashed my tire, I'm not going to assume it's the homeless guy who's sleeping in a tent asking for food. Why would they have a knife? Why would they wander aimlessly around slashing tires? It makes no sense. You immediately blame the poor person, the person with nothing living outside. Isn't that hilarious? No. How about it's the other fringe weirdos who hold your extremist ideologies who destroyed your tires on purpose because they think you're an elitist, climate change producing, I don't know, jerk. Los Angeles is grappling with, and I want to mention too, just real quick, and they didn't realize this in the Hollywood Reporter either, just like Hollywood is an awful place. Okay, I moved there years ago, I was all excited to be in California, and then I left because I realized it's terrible, and now I'm on the East Coast. Los Angeles is grappling with the homeless epidemic. It's the worst human catastrophe in America, says Andy Bales, a pastor who runs the Union Rescue Mission on Skid Row. Faced with a growing crisis, city leaders last year budgeted more than $100 million for affordable housing, addiction treatment, job placement, and mental health services. And yet, as LA's real estate prices soar, so does the city's homeless population. And nowhere have the twin forces of inaccessible housing and inequality created a more explosive mix than in Venice Beach, a hotbed of entertainment executives and talent, where the median home price is $1.9 million. Many of these residents are now grappling with a quality of life issue that defies their own liberal ideals. You know, it's a really funny point that gets brought up. A lot of these homes in LA, they have massive walls. They're very hard to get to. Security systems, spikes, etc. And these are the people who claim that Trump is wrong to want a wall. Now look, I'm not saying Trump's wall is the right answer. I'm just saying, I don't know, it's like, I don't know how you can say a wall is immoral or ineffective when you build walls yourselves, as it's been pointed out. Sleepless in Seattle and community producer Gary Foster, who moved to the area 2 years ago from Westwood and works with the homeless advocacy group The People Concerned, says he was surprised by the number of residents who expressed exasperation with, if not outright disdain for, the transient population. Noting how some dude just believed his tires were being slashed by homeless people for no reason. What? You think these people randomly go and slash your tires? That's ridiculous. They tend to be liberal. They tend to do good in the world, but they're balancing their beliefs with how that might impact the value of their real estate, says Foster, who began his activism after producing The Soloist, about a journalist who discovers a musical savant living on Skid Row. Let's give an honorable mention to the politicians and advocates who talk about climate change and then fly in private jets and own dozens of cars. Yes, rules for thee, but not for me, as it goes. They're actually advocating driving the homeless out of Venice, shipping them off somewhere, which is such a proto-fascist move, says television writer Evan Dunsky, a 27-year resident of the area. And then what? Do we have to build a wall around Venice? Well, at least he recognizes the wall would work, I suppose. Venice is now home to the largest concentration of homeless anywhere on LA's west side, with nearly 1,000 non-domiciled people. During the past 18 months, several encampments have swelled in more residential areas where homes can easily sell for 8 figures and up. Tents, many of them equipped with mini refrigerators, cupboards, televisions, and heaters, vie with pedestrian traffic. Residents who live near the encampments say mail regularly goes missing, break-ins have jumped, hypodermic needles and human waste are appearing on sidewalks and at local playgrounds. Residents have complained to police about harassment and even physical assaults. This is more of a criminal problem than a homeless problem, says one resident, who lives next to the so-called Frederick Camp adjacent to Penmar Golf Course. A homeless camp next to a golf course. That's fascinating. Oh, and it's a criminal problem, not a homeless problem. That's really fascinating how you're calling the homeless criminals. It's really funny. It's almost like, at the end of the day, all that really matters is tribalism. When the right says illegal immigrants are criminals by nature, by illegally entering the country, and they should be dealt with, it's people like this in Venice who roll their eyes and say, oh, you're bigots, you're racists. When they have a homeless problem, they say, well, it's not that they're homeless, it's because they're criminals. So the people who can't afford anywhere to live or who are mentally ill and living on the streets, it's because they're criminals that you're having all these problems. I love the utter hypocrisy. Can we be real for a minute? Yes, there are many homeless people who probably do commit crimes. The issue, in my opinion, is that poverty breeds crime. That's why I'm a social liberal. I recognize that if we can figure out how we can solve this problem, right, and I believe the government can play a role in that, we can reduce crime. I'm not going to say all homeless people are criminals, nor are all illegal immigrants. I understand the idea that if they enter illegally, they've committed a crime. Yes, that's fair. I understand that. The point I'm saying is, when it comes to, outside of that, is a homeless person more likely to slash your tires? Maybe. I think an environmental activist is much more likely to do so. Does it mean we shouldn't try to stop them from slashing your tires? No, of course not. We should try to deal with the crime if it's coming from homeless or otherwise. The issue is, claiming it's a criminal problem doesn't actually solve the homeless problem. If you can solve the homeless problem, you might actually solve or reduce a lot of the crime. If you solve border security, you could also reduce a lot of crime. So here's what I'll say to the LA people who are complaining about this. Homeless people commit less crime than the average American. Why are we talking about it, right? Because that's what they like to do. When you say, hey man, we've got a problem with crime from homeless people. Oh yeah, but homeless people commit less crime than gang members. Why are you even bringing it up? Doesn't make sense, does it? We should try and stop crime across the board. But anyway, the main point is, what we see here, once again, is the utter hypocrisy of those who claim to be fighting for good, when in reality they really don't. Now they do mention there are some people who are, advocating for homeless people. And that's fair. It's not everybody in LA. It's not every progressive. It just so happens that for some reason, when it comes to actually believing in these things, well, they don't. They claim to for brownie points. They do it for good PR. And then when it comes to their neighborhoods, they scoff and say, put them on a bus and get them out of here. Because apparently that happened before. I don't know the full story, but they put them on a bus and shipped them off to some other place. South Park did an episode where they put all the homeless on a bus in Denver and then shipped them off to Venice Beach. That's the point. Anyway, I think you get the picture. It's another story where we can see the complete and utter hypocrisy of those who claim to be fighting for justice, who actually just don't care. And this is what bothers me the most. I worked for these nonprofits. My whole life was built up of me trying to do the right thing to make the world a better place. I was an activist. I started working for nonprofits to fundraise, to fight for something better. And I found out that people, no matter where you come from, the evil people, the manipulative, selfish people, they gain power with these awful techniques. The nonprofits lie because the mission can never end. They have to make sure they can keep selling you on something. And the people who claim to be the good ones, the good guys, fighting for truth and justice, what do? They complain, oh, there's too many homeless people in my neighborhood. Well, do something about it. Do something for your community. You have millions of dollars because someone took a picture of your face, okay? I'm not saying acting is the easiest job in the world, but you want to compare acting to, say, back-breaking manual labor in a factory. Yeah, sorry, buddy. You have a lot of money from your industry. It makes a lot of money. That's fine. Maybe you should give back in a way more than just complaining that your property values are going down because of the poor people who have mental health issues, can't find work, or are disabled. Maybe you should actually do something about it. Anyway, stick around. More videos coming up in a few minutes. I'll see you then.